Well, the Barbenheimer beef dominated Hollywood all year, but last night's Oscars saw a knockout blow in the cinematic tussle of our age. Oppenheimer sweeping the board, winning Best Director, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, and Best Picture, and others. Barbie, on the other hand, dying like a dog, winning only one gong from 8 nominations. The solitary win was Best Song for Billie Eilish's What Was I Made For, which you could have said about the movie itself, in my estimation. Unfortunately, Ryan Gosling, film's leading man, managed to show this wasn't even the best song in Barbie, with a barnstorming-like performance of I'm Just Ken. So did the dreaded patriarchy have the last laugh in this battle of the blockbusters? And is this the year that finally proves we've had enough Ken-ough, I like what they've done there, of woke Hollywood? Joining me to debate the biggest night in Hollywood is my Oscar super PAC, Esther Krakue and Ava Santina, and two titans of the YouTube movie community, the critical drinker and Nerdrotic. Well, we are honoured to have you two gentlemen. Thank you very much indeed. Equally honoured to have you two ladies here, my resident Barbies. Let me start, critical drinker, if I may, with you. So this might be heresy, but I absolutely loathed everything about Barbie. I loathed what it stood for. I loathed what it was. I tried to wade through it and found it unwatchable, man-bashing tosh. But I also found Oppenheimer, and this might be heresy, a beautifully made film, brilliantly acted film, but way too long and bordering on boring. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that's pretty much par for the course when it comes to Christopher Nolan movies, but it seems like it's just a sign of the times in that perhaps if Oppenheimer had been released in a different year when there was stronger competition, it might not have fared so well, but it just seems like that was really what it was up against. You know, it was a sign of the low quality, the low bar that Hollywood had set for itself last year, that Oppenheimer really was the best of the bunch. Yeah, it probably was a bit too long and possibly a bit too self-indulgent in places, but it was not a great year for movies. And so I think the Oscars this year, it's probably an example of playing it safe and picking the logical choice, because it was pretty much the best that we got last year.
And Nerdrotic, I mean, if you extend the safety thing to the event itself, you know, if you compare it to when Ricky Gervais hosted the Globus, for example, and spray-gunned everybody. You know, Jimmy Kimmel was pretty tame, I thought. The show itself was fine, but I found having 5 previous winners coming up for all the main categories and paying unctuous homage to the new winners and the candidates, the nominees, I found all that got very, very nauseating quite quickly. And it kind of said to me that with that and the fact that no one dares make any speeches now which are remotely political, with one exception, I think, of a director, other than that, everybody stayed on safe script. It's just, again, the Oscars have got very safe and, I would argue, boring.
Yeah, that's the worst criticism I have for him. It was just a slog. And yeah, the 5 actors coming out, and it was so pretentious and cringe. I couldn't get through it, and I had to actually stop watching it at some point. And it's really hard for Hollywood to fight this giant disconnect they have with their audience when you come out and do something like that. But that, honestly, least offensive thing they've done in a while, and it's clear that they had a talking to. There was, because this is it's a pretty hyper political year, and for them to be quiet was definitely the producers saying tone it down until the end, when they completely blew it and told half their audience that to F off anyway, which is the biggest problem Hollywood has. And they just don't understand to this day that their disconnect is something that it's never mentioned in the press. It's never mentioned anywhere really with the audience and how many people they've driven away. I think that, you know, I don't know if the ratings are going to be great for this. I think they'll be minimal, but it was just boring and pretentious. And I think it's a dying old model. It's a 20th century model that's just had its time.
Right. Ava, I mean, Barbie getting flatlined by a movie about an atomic bomb, I found personally quite satisfying. And also the fact that the biggest star of the night connected to Barbie was, of course, Ken, Ryan Gosling. I thought he did the best show with his little performance, is brilliant, but mainly because he has Slash next to him, not Barbie. You know, you replace Dumb as a Rock Barbie with Slash, one of the great guitar heroes of all time. Suddenly the whole thing works, right? And I'm seeing a sequel which will be called simply Ken, and we'll have dozens of other Kens who are all brilliantly talented and world leaders in all the things that they do. And there'll be one woman, a token Barbie, who's going to be dumb and sits in the corner, and we just laugh at women for the entire 2 hours. How do you think that would go down?
Well, I'm sure that a lot of women will go to watch that, and I'm sure that it will make a lot of very clever movie execs a lot of money. But look, I don't really understand why you think I love Barbie or want to speak up for it. What I do care about
Do you hate Barbie?
What I do care about is that Greta Gerwig is routinely looked over. I mean, she made Little Women a few years ago, and that should have been Oscar. That should have been Oscar nominated because it was a fantastic production. Look, it goes to show that women are left out of the conversation because a lot of the time men don't think that it's worth their time to watch a quote-unquote women's film. And I mean, it was enjoyed by women all over the world.
If women produce good content, they'll get all the accolades. I don't understand this obsession
What's your bar for content?
with Barbie, because Barbie as a character is quite unlikable. She's a complete bitch. She's a rude cow. She treats Ken horribly. I don't understand why you're having this
Totally agree.
horrible plastic person being kind of the echelon or the upper echelon of the ultimate woman. It's ridiculous. So apart from the fact that she's a horrible character, the film was trash. They spent more money on the marketing than the actual content production, which shows a lot. This idea that women always have to be nominated or you always have to have some diverse category to show that there's progress is ridiculous. This is why Hollywood has suffered so much. Hollywood has had bad film years. In 2001, when Halle Berry won the Oscar, it was a pretty slow film year. But you couldn't argue that the content was terrible. Now the content is terrible because you can't make anything that you want to, because everything has to have some diversity push.
And even when you do, I want to bring in critical drinker again, because it seems to me the movie I've most enjoyed going to the movies to watch was Top Gun Maverick. Now, I'm old enough to remember the first one, which I absolutely loved. And rather like The Godfather, the sequel more than lived up to the hype and was as good, if not better, than the first one. But I took two of my sons, rite of passage. We ended up punching the air, shouting. It was like one of the best afternoons out we'd had in a long time. A big cinema, watching it in all its glory. And that didn't win Best Picture. And I'm like, well, why doesn't a movie like that win Best Picture? Why don't you just, sometimes Hollywood, just sit back and go, we're going to give it to the film that actually most enthralled people, not the one that preached to everyone like Barbie and tried to make everyone hate men, but actually, or one that was just so worthy it almost ate itself in syrupy worthiness, like Oppenheimer, brilliantly made though it was. Why not give it to a movie like Top Gun Maverick, as they used to give it to Rocky I or, The Godfather, these great classic films that stood the test of time?
I think the Academy traditionally looks down on these big pop culture, popcorn blockbuster type movies. And so they tend to get overlooked as not being worthy enough of an Oscar. And when you look at things like Rocky, as you gave an example, that was a low budget movie at the time. Sylvester Stallone was an unknown actor. And so it really was like this, 1,000,000-to-1 shot. There was a story associated with that. With something like Top Gun Maverick, fantastic movie, a great example of catering to your audience. Barbie is a great example of trying to cater to the female audience. It's very female oriented, obviously. Top Gun Maverick, the exact opposite, very much skewed towards a male audience. They understand what men are looking for. They want to see the technology, the fighter jets, the awesome pilots doing what they do, the patriotism, the sort of pro-America stuff, all great stuff. It just understands exactly what the audience wants, and it gives it to them in spades. Is it an Oscar-worthy movie? Possibly not. Who cares? No one cares what the Oscars do anymore. They're largely
well, that's really interesting.
Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, also, let's talk about the host for a minute, Jimmy Kimmel, Nerdrotic, because I don't know. There were some moments. There was one joke he did that hasn't really been picked up, but it was aimed at the German actress who was up for one of the awards, and he said this.
Sandra Hüller, 2 movies. Sandra plays a woman on trial for murdering her husband in Anatomy of a Fall, and a Nazi housewife living next to Auschwitz in The Zone of Interest. And while these are very heavy subjects for American moviegoers, in Sandra's native Germany, they're called rom-coms.
I got to say, I thought that really missed the mark for me. And she looked very awkward and embarrassed by that. Am I wrong to be thinking that was actually pretty unacceptably offensive?
I don't worry so much about offense as Jimmy Kimmel not being funny at all. I think his presence offends me as he pretends to be a comedian. As you said, Piers, it's such a safe move to have him there that one joke, I think his worst joke was at the end when he fell right into Trump's trap and read Trump roasting him.
Well, let's take I'll tell you what, let's take a look at that, because actually that was a very interesting moment. So he actually gets a message that Trump has posted on social media about him, and he reads it out. Let's watch.
Has there ever been a worse host than Jimmy Kimmel at the Oscars? His opening was that of a less than average person trying too hard to be something which he is not and never can be.
So Nerdrotic, I mean, yeah, all right, he's entitled to have a white back, but it felt a bit self-indulgent to me doing that.
Yeah, he even acknowledged it, and he went ahead and did it anyway after he was criminally unfunny the entire night. And he's just a safe pick. He hasn't been funny in years. He's one of the worst hosts I've ever seen. All we kept on seeing on Twitter was clips from Oscar shows 20 years ago, and people going, remember when the Oscars were good? Yeah. Remember when things were funny? We are so far away from that. They are so far away from their peak ratings. And I understand that they want to be safe now after, helping divide our country, playing into it for so long, especially during some strife. And you brought up Top Gun Maverick. Yeah, it should win Best Picture. It saved Hollywood. There's a couple movies that saved Hollywood. Yeah. Let's not forget, 2019 had $9 billion films. Since then, they've had 6.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a good point.
But would Barbie not fit into that? Because was Barbie not a Hollywood safe?
Well, Barbie and Oppenheimer did very good box office. You can't deny that. I just hated the fact that millions and millions of women went out and had to hear the word patriarchy 11 times in a movie and were made to think all men are evil. Well, right? No, look, and I love the fact that last night Ken has the last laugh. That just made me laugh.
Yeah, look, I don't like white...
It was funny.
It I mean,
that's sort of white
feminism. The biggest standout star last night was Ken, right? And Barbie is sat there like a grinning doll, doing nothing, winning nothing. Poor old Margot Robbie. All right, poor old Margot. She's made gazillions out of producing it. Well done, Margot. I think she's great. Love her personally. Great actress. But the Barbie play out last night was Ken's the ultimate winner. It's all about Ken.
Yeah, but it's not even, it's not the sort of feminism that we engage in regularly, is it? It's sort of white feminism, white rich person feminism.
Well, talking about, how would you have felt if a naked woman had come on stage last night, clutching a little thing over her genitalia, and the whole joke was about her fact that she was topless and semi-naked? Because we saw John Cena doing it, right?
I would have called the police, because clearly that's a mentally unwell person.
Now, if that had been a woman, and I'd said, wow, she looks hot, you would have gone, you disgusting, objectifying pig. How dare you? Why are we not saying the same thing here?
I have to say that actually does make me feel quite uncomfortable. but
does it?
Yeah, it does actually. Yeah, but do we not? Was this not a thing of the early 2000s? Were we not doing this all the time? I mean, women were naked on page 3 in our newspapers.
Well, I thought we'd all moved on. This was the whole point.
Well, but you know, men are having their moments.
Women can drool and a naked
men are having their moments.
We can regress.
No, the truth is, Esther, the truth is that women have had it both ways. I'm sorry, as a breed, you've had this with stuff like with the objectifying. Well, you're a breed, yeah. With the objectifying debate of nudity, the way that women think is absolutely fine to drool over semi-naked, naked blokes, right, in Hollywood or whatever it may be. But the moment a man does it over a woman, they have to be cancelled, expunged and arrested.
I completely disagree with that, because all of the Sydney Sweeney narrative over the past week has been, oh my God, this woman is so beautiful. What is not acceptable is when men are like, I would like to do awful things to that woman. That's the sort of narrative
all the time with women.
See, the thing is, women claim to...
Poldark, remember Poldark? Every time a new series of Poldark came out, there would be Aidan Turner with the kids off, and women going, what I'd do to Aidan Turner. Yeah. And we're all supposed to go, well, that's great.
Because it's
you know why we say great? Because men don't care.
Because it's not threatening, is it?
You can't have it both ways. With the whole Sydney Sweeney thing, yes, it's because she had her boobs out and she looked like she was auditioning to be a wet nurse. But the thing is, you can't have it, because there were some men that were objectifying her, but everyone was celebrating it. But somehow, when it comes to men, it's basically a form of revenge. Women don't want to say it, but seeing men objectifying men or treating men in the dehumanizing way you don't want to see women being treated as, it's seen as a form of revenge.
By the way,
but you got away with it.
But here's the secret, Esther: men don't care. If women want to if women want to objectify me, objectify away. You'll make my day.
I could never do that, Piers.
And
That's a hate crime.
And most women I know, whether they want to admit it or not, like being objectified. If they're looking great, They like men to go, wow.
But it's context, isn't there? There's context to that.
Really? What's the context?
Well, because if you're out and about and someone, is objectifying you in a nice way, then that's great.
What's positive objectivity?
How do you feel if a builder wolf whistles at you? How do you feel?
Fine with that.
Is that
Exactly.
that's positive?
When has any woman in history ever been genuinely upset by a bunch of builders wolf
You don't want to feel threatened by a man, right?
I agree. No, I agree.
If it was late at night and then a man is wolf whistling at you,
I'm talking about purely the objectification debate. Let me bring the guys back in who are being objectified by their absence from this debate right now. Let me talk to you, critical drinker, about Robert Downey Jr. and a quip that Jimmy Kimmel made about his drug taking.
Oh, yeah.
This is the highest point of Robert Downey Jr.'s long and illustrious career. Well, one of the highest points. But Robert has been Was that too on the nose, or was that a drug motion you made?
He then made a very odd joke about whether he had a rectangular penis. It was all very bizarre. But Downey Jr. didn't look very amused by that. And I'm not surprised, really. If you've come back from drug addiction, and this is your greatest moment as an actor, your first Oscar, do you really want a guy cracking jokes about your drug taking?
Yeah, I mean, Robert's trying to laugh it off there, and hopefully they were going to move on quickly. But it's probably just another example of Jimmy falling on his arse as a comedian and as a host. Like, that was a poorly judged joke. It didn't really land. You could tell people weren't really loving it, and it just felt like a bit mean-spirited considering, this was Robert winning an Oscar that night. So, yeah, poorly judged. I wouldn't have done it. Didn't feel necessary, and it wasn't funny in the first place.
Nerdrotic, just generally about the Oscars. We've touched on this, but I remember watching them when I was young, when David Niven might host it, or Billy Crystal, or whatever. It always felt incredibly glamorous. One thing that struck me last night, I never once felt like I was watching a glamorous event. It was almost like the magic had slightly disappeared from the room, perhaps never to come back. I mean, is it that we know too much about these people now, that social media has drained any of the mystique out of Hollywood stars? What is it that's taken the magic away?
Oh, I think you hit it right there. We know them now. These used to be an event, and this was the only time we saw these movie stars, and we didn't see them tweeting about whatever politics all day long. So it was true. There was a novelty there. There was an event here in America. It was called the Gay Super Bowl. It was an event that people would actually sit around. I remember sitting around with my family and my friends watching. As the first two Lord of the Rings films lost Best Picture, which they should have won. But that's when it was fun and things were good. As I said earlier, this is a 20th century model that I just think has had its time. And yeah, there are no movie stars anymore. There's no star that's going to fill the seats just based on their name. There used to be, but now it's the intellectual property, and that's even dying right now. So they're headed for a real tough time.
Yeah, I mean, who are the big movie stars? I mean, I would still say Tom Cruise is a bona fide movie star.
He's from a different era.
But I wouldn't call him one of the great actors. I think he's one of the great movie stars.
Right, yeah. Well,
I mean, he's from a different era. But that's the thing.
Then I would say Ryan Reynolds and Margot Robbie. They get people to the cinema.
Ryan Reynolds is a movie star, and she is definitely a movie star.
I think the general thing is the sheen has worn off of Hollywood because we know them now, because they're so overexposed on social media. We know their politics. We know how they fundamentally look down on a lot of people, even if they don't feel like they are. So culturally, people have just disengaged.
You know who we don't know about? He's given no television interview in 45 plus years? Jack Nicholson.
Well, exactly.
And the reason he doesn't is he refused. I've tried everything. The reason he doesn't is that he believes it kills the mystique.
Yep, absolutely.
People shouldn't see the real you.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see you at a sporting event or something. He goes to the Lakers. I'm often there looking at him, trying to book him across the court. But he doesn't believe in doing interviews about himself on television.
He's completely right.
When you say they're overexposed, they're not also underexposed, because the politics that they do give away is very controlled, and it is quite contrived.
Well, no, because you have to look at it from this perspective. You are a movie star. You're worth millions or hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't want to know your opinion on politics generally, because we don't live the same type of life.
No, but
they live in the top 1%. They can be advocating for whatever whatever they are. But for us, it's condescending because, wait, you played pretend on TV and now you think you have extensive knowledge on politics?
I appreciate that when you're seeing someone who is living like a billionaire's lifestyle and they're talking about climate change, it's frustrating. But then if you look at someone like Angelina Jolie, who spends a lot of time with the UN, is that not more interesting?
We know you for playing pretend. We don't know you because you're a doctor or a chemist or anything.
Then you get
like
offered a platform, you know.
Well, but that's the thing. Don't abuse your platform by.
You know my problem with that. Let me bring Critical Drinker into this debate, because I think my problem is it's fine if you want to use your platform as a movie star to opine about world events, fine. But what you can't be is deliberately, obviously excluding to ones that are just a little bit too uncomfortable for who your bosses might be. And I've really felt that this award season is that actually I don't want them pontificating about politics particularly at all. But it's been really noticeable, like I said earlier, that absolutely no star in Hollywood at any awards event has made any comment about the Israel-Hamas war. And that, to me, has been really noticeable. And then it makes me think, well, how genuine and sincere have been their previous pronouncements about political issues, like Donald Trump, like whatever it may be. If you're not going to go into the more difficult one, because it might harm your career in some way, because you see people getting cancelled, I think there's a real exposure of a virtue signalling mentality there.
I think so, yeah. With the Israel-Hamas thing, it's a much more divisive issue where people are generally split down the middle. If it's something like, I think Donald Trump is the worst president in history, whatever, that's a safe thing to say in Hollywood. Nobody in the industry is going to.
No, but that's my point. It's a safe thing to say in Hollywood, but it would be very divisive. I mean, I remember when I was at CNN debating gun control, for example, and it would get very, very heated and blew up a few times. But I would have big Hollywood stars who would agree to be interviewed and then cancel. I won't name them, because they say, look, Piers, I'd love to come on, but I would probably have to agree with you. And I'm a movie star, and a lot of my business is in Middle America, where they love guns, and I'm just not going to alienate half my audience. And I got that. I respected that. But what I find it hard to respect so much is that none of them are prepared to put their head over the parapet when it's a little bit too, controversial, potentially damaging to their careers.
Well, absolutely, yeah. And it's almost like they don't really care that much about any of this stuff. They want the superficial veneer of being concerned about these things and being virtuous, but only so far as it helps their career and it allows them to toe the party line in Hollywood. If it goes against that, they will drop that like a hot brick. Of course they will, because it doesn't help them then. It's about appearing to be good. It's not about actually doing anything good.
I think you've touched on a good point. Are they willing to make sacrifices for what they really believe in? And that's the thing. If you told all these people, these celebrities virtue signaling about climate change, actually no more private jets for you, they would shut up tomorrow. They're not willing to sacrifice anything. Talk is cheap, and you never see it more.
But not just that, even with Israel Gaza, as Piers was talking about there, you look at Bella Hadid, and she's lost many modelling jobs because she has been explicitly pro-Palestine. Off the back of that, I think a lot of people are frightened, and that is cowardly.
Well, but this is the thing. So they have no convictions. So if you don't have any convictions about things that can actually cost you, why do you talk about anything else? Shut up.
I do think there's a point there.
Not you.
No, I heard it as me. So
no, not you.
I just think the smart ones, you notice, just don't talk about politics very much. When did you last hear Tom Cruise make a speech at an award ceremony about anything political?
He's a Scientologist.
Yeah. No.
He is. What do you mean?
No, he is. But when did he last talk about that? When did he last talk about that on a stage at an award ceremony?
Exactly.
He doesn't.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
A lot of them have their weird little peccadillos, not least of which Scientology. But he doesn't talk about it at award ceremonies, and I think that's right. I just think once you do, you've got to be consistent. It's like all the people who have been, very, very angry, pro-Palestinian, anti-Israeli, but said absolutely nothing after October the 7th. Nothing.
Yeah.
Right? Sorry, can't respect that. I do if you said that was horrific. And by the way, I think what's happening now is, but not when you're selective in your moral outrage. Let's end on a happier, lighter note. We've come up with the Piersys. Well, I haven't, but one of my producers, Paul, who has a slightly inflamed, if not crazed mind, has come up with the Piersys. So this is just a series of quick, quiet questions. I want answers from all of you. They're pretty straightforward, but they do reveal a mindset, I think, about you, your character, and your view of movies and how they impact on life. So there are various nominations in each category. The first one is the best James Bond. And let's start with you, Critical Drinker. Connery, Moore, or Craig?
Connery. It's got to be. As a fellow Scot, I have to support him, and I think he embodied the masculinity of Bond, the danger, the menace, and the cool intellectualism. All of those things were in perfect balance with Connery.
Nerdrotic?
Connery. Absolutely. I agree. I grew up with Roger Moore, but Connery was the more accurate, the better Bond.
Okay, Ava?
Don't ask me. I'm not good on Bond. It wasn't a film for me. It wasn't a film for me.
Barbie
Even when Daniel Craig went all drippy and wokey.
I was, I'm a Pride and Prejudice Little Women kind of girl. I go for the girly movies.
You can go and see them now. Bond's not allowed to seduce women.
Yeah, exactly.
It's he gets arrested now.
There we go.
And he can't shoot villains.
I'll tell you what, I'll love the
it's
first
bad for
female
their
Bond.
mental health.
How about that?
Definitely Connery. Craig lost it for me when he started crying.
See, I'm going to say more because when I was young, I was actually, people said I look like Roger Moore. And he also came up with the best line I've ever heard about doing sex scenes with Bond girls. And I said to him, I interviewed him for my Life Story show, and I said, what's it like? It must be really difficult. And he said, well, Piers, let me put it to you like this, he said, I used to always go up to whichever lady it was before we started filming, and I'd say before the love scene, I'd say, I'd like to apologise in advance if I get overexcited. And then he said, and I'd pause and then say, and I'd also like to apologise if I don't.
Oh.
Okay, a few more.
That's a good way to
Best
be.
Godfather instalment. All right, Critical Drinker. 1, 2, or God forbid 3?
No one's going to pick 3. Come on. Probably 2. Just that balance of Pacino and De Niro in the same movie. Superb. The time jumps between the 1912s, the 1920s, and the present day in the 50s and 60s. Great. Seeing how Vito became the man that he was, fantastic. That the dual narrative works so well in that movie.
Nerdrotic?
Part 1, Marlon Brando.
Yeah.
Because of Marlon Brando.
Yeah, he was fantastic in part 1. And actually, I would add James Caan, whose Sonny Corleone was one of the great characters. Never gets enough credit. Absolutely sensational.
Ooh, so good.
Okay, you two?
The first
Have you watched them?
I haven't watched the third one. I've watched the first and second installment. The
Which
first
one?
one because it had the most memorable lines. You know
Which
what I
one?
mean?
First one?
The first one, yeah.
Christmas,
Yeah.
very drunk, 3.
Oh
What?
no! Oh no!
My
Really
God.
drunk,
Nobody
okay?
has ever said they prefer Godfather 3.
Drunk on
That's literally...
First time in
That is a
history.
That's like
first.
saying, do you prefer Chateau Latour
It
or
starts
Chateau
a-
Lafitte?
no, but it
Actually, I
starts a
like a bit of
conversation.
Liebfraumilch.
It's like preferring Greece.
It's a
to
conversation,
Greece.
you know?
Yeah, horrific.
you're enjoying-
All right, that's horrific. Let's move on. Best director never to win an Oscar. So the nominations are Critical Drinker, Hitchcock, Kubrick, Tarantino, Ridley Scott. Incredible quartet of directors never to win an Oscar. Who's the one that should have done of those 4?
That's a tricky one. Kubrick is responsible for some of the most influential movies in the whole history of cinema. But my heart says Ridley Scott, just because I love Blade Runner so much, and Alien, both fantastic movies. So I'd go with him.
Okay. Nerdrotic?
Kubrick. Because, Hitchcock is the easiest answer, but Kubrick is a master. And he made his Stephen King book better than the book.
Okay, I'm going to
said
say Hitchcock. I thought Hitchcock, the fact he never won an Oscar was outrageous.
That's actually.
I think he did end up getting something, but not as director. Then they gave him a lifetime achievement or something. But he just, a masterful director.
I was going to say Tarantino, but that's because I find his films are the easiest to have cult followings.
Yeah.
Not Greta Gerwig for you then, no?
No, absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not.
No. Have you got do you even know who these
No,
4 are?
I'm going for secret option number 5, Miss Gerwig.
All right, best blonde bombshell. Here we go. Critical Drinker, Marilyn or Margot Robbie?
Oh, gosh. I've always got an eye for the classics, so I'm going to go for Marilyn.
Nerdrotic?
Marilyn, all the way.
Ladies?
The original.
Margot, we share a bone structure.
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah, we share.
No, you do. Ava?
I go for Margot.
Yeah.
I'm actually, as a deciding vote, I'm actually going to cast Margot Robbie.
Yeah.
Ah.
Wow,
Yeah,
there
I
you go.
think
Great.
she's become the biggest female star in the world.
Yeah.
And I like the fact also there's a lot of brains behind the beauty.
Yeah.
That she set up this production company and that she's done brilliantly and she's making gazillions. I like that. Okay.
And she's alive.
Yeah, the last 2. Yeah, exactly.
That
Which
helps.
That always helps.
Which helps. All right, last 2. Best Rocky film. There have been 6 Rocky movies. So,
Yeah.
critical drinker, which one?
Man, this is a tough one because I love Rocky 6. I love Rocky Balboa. I think that's such a beautiful way to end the series, and it really redeemed it after Rocky 5. But it's probably going to have to be Rocky 1, realistically. It's just got the absolute magic. It'll never be replicated.
Okay, Nerdrotic?
Rocky 3.
Wow, Mr. T.
Love Rocky 3. Mr. T.
What's your prediction
All
of the
way.
fight? Pain.
Yes.
Love that. He was a great character. I mean, so was Dolph Lundgren in 4. They had great villains. Esther?
Not my thing.
Not your thing?
No, not your thing. No.
I'm scared to keep telling these men, but I hated Rocky. I'm so sorry. I'm so
You
sorry.
can't hate Rocky.
What is wrong with
sorry.
you? Come on.
Why are you like this?
I'm being too honest. I'm so
didn't
sorry.
You
even
love
get inspired
Godfather
by the
3 and
first
hate
one.
Rocky. I mean, there's something actually wrong with you. I would say this about the Rocky. I once watched the first 4 back-to-back in the Uckfield Picture House cinema in East Sussex on the south coast of England. Took about 6.5 hours. One of the great 6.5 hours of my life. But gave me a great chance to watch them in sequence. And I always
I
thought...
still maintain that 2 is underrated.
2
as
is
well.
underrated, absolutely. And obviously ends the way you want it to end at the start of the first one. Rocky 1 is the most beautifully made film and thoroughly deserved winning Best Picture. And of course, it's an incredible story that Stallone turned down millions to turn down playing the role and let somebody else do it. They wanted to pay him not to be the actor. But he said, no, I'm going to be the star, and that's it. And it made him what he is. But I'm actually going to go with Rocky Balboa, the 6th one, because it was 20 years after the last one. Rocky 5, which no one's mentioned, was the sort of terminal disease, actually, of Rocky films. One of the worst things I've ever watched. But in Rocky Balboa, what I love was, I've got 3 sons in their 20s. The scene in the street when the spoiled brat son, which none of mine have been, but when the spoiled brat son finally winds up his dad enough that Rocky has it out with him in the street, and he does that speech about life is not a bed of roses, it's tough, and it will beat you down if you let it. And if you want to win in life, it's not how many times you can hit, it's how many times you can get hit and keep moving forward. That is one of the great speeches in movie history. So for that alone...
The polar opposite of the Barbie speech.
Correct.
Thank you.
The absolute antithesis
Thank you.
of everything Barbie stands for. So I'm going Rocky Balboa, the 6th of the franchise. A final question, probably the most significant, actually, in terms of your character. The critical drinker. Do you have your popcorn sweet, salted, or mixed?
Whoa, that is a tough one indeed. I'm going to go for salted because I prefer salted stuff over like really sweet things. Same with my cocktails. I want bitter cocktails instead of sweet ones.
Wow,
So,
a little bit
salty.
too much information at the end, but I'll take it. All right, Nerdrotic?
Mixed.
Mixed?
I like it mixed.
Interesting.
Yes.
So,
Salty, yeah, I thought you would be.
Yeah, I thought you
Oh.
look salty.
Esther? Yeah, she does. Salty little devil.
Mixed, but good quality mixed.
Good quality mix, yeah. I'm actually salted, actually. Yeah, yeah, I like a salted popcorn. That's it for the Piersys. Thank you very much indeed. Great to have you guys on for the first time on Uncensored, Critical Drinker and Nerdrotic, 2 hugely popular guys on YouTube, and I can see why. Thank you very much. And to Ava and Esther, thank you both very much. And a final thought, really, that Barbie got what it deserved last night.
Absolutely.
The man had the last laugh. Thank God for Ken. Thank you all.